The biggest question on the minds of many DC movie fans is a simple one. Why is there a new Superman? For years, Henry Cavill was the face of the iconic hero, starring in movies that really defined a whole era of DC filmmaking. His return, briefly announced in late 2022 after a cameo in Black Adam, seemed to promise more adventures. However, just a few weeks later the news shifted dramatically. James Gunn and Peter Safran took over as the new heads of DC Studios, and they had a completely different plan. Their vision for a fresh, interconnected universe required a new beginning, and that meant starting with a new actor to wear the famous red cape. This decision was not about firing Henry Cavill or a reflection of his performance. Instead, it was a fundamental creative choice. James Gunn has been clear that his new film, simply titled Superman, tells a story about an earlier part of the hero's life. This narrative required a different kind of energy, and a different actor to embody it. The established version of the character, with all his history from previous films, simply wouldn't fit into the new story Gunn wanted to tell. It was a strategic move to ensure the new DC Universe, or DCU, could stand on its own, free from the baggage of the past and ready to build something entirely new for audiences. The change marks a clear dividing line between the old DC Extended Universe, often called the DCEU, and the new DCU. The previous films, often referred to as the SNYDER'S, had a distinct darker tone. They explored the heavy burden of being a superhero in a cynical world. The new leadership at DC Studios wanted to move in a different direction, towards a more hopeful and optimistic tone. To achieve this, they needed a Superman who could be the bright, shining center of that new world. The recasting of the role with actor David Corenswet was the first and most important step in establishing this new foundation for the future of DC movies. For audiences who might be new to these films, the transition can be understood as turning the page to a brand new chapter. Think of it like a new comic book series starting with issue number 1. While the character is the same, the story, the world, and the tone are all fresh. The decision to recast Superman was the signal that everything that came before is now a separate story. This allows the new films to create their own rules, introduce new heroes, and tell interconnected stories without being tied to the events or character arcs of the movies that starred Henry Cavill. It's a clean slate for the Man of Steel. Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman was unique and perfectly suited to the world he inhabited. In films like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, he played a hero defined by his isolation and internal conflict. This was a Superman who was new to our world, struggling to find his place among a humanity that often feared him. He was a godlike figure wrestling with the immense responsibility of his powers. The world around him was gritty, realistic, and skeptical, and his character reflected that. He was often silent, brooding, and carried the visible weight of his decisions, making his moments of heroism feel hard-earned and momentous. The style of these movies, directed by Zack Snyder, was visually dark and thematically heavy. The stories explored the consequences of a superpowered being existing in the real world. Cavill's Superman was frequently shown as a solitary figure, framed against vast, imposing landscapes or scenes of immense destruction. His journey was one of existential angst. He had to prove his worth not just to humanity, but also to himself. This version of the character was less about being an easy symbol of hope, and more about the difficult path to becoming one. It was a deconstruction of the classic hero, showing the pain and sacrifice required to be a savior. This darker take was a deliberate choice that set the DC Extended Universe apart. It aimed for a more mature and complex narrative, where heroes were flawed and their victories were not guaranteed. Cavill's Superman was the anchor of this philosophy. He wasn't a cheerful Boy Scout from the start. He was a reluctant messiah figuring out his purpose. His most significant moments were born from tragedy and loss, such as the destruction in Metropolis or his own death at the hands of Doomsday. This created a powerful, dramatic arc for the character, but it also painted him into a corner, defining him by his struggles rather than his inherent optimism. Ultimately, Cavill's Superman was a product of his cinematic environment. He was the hero that the somber, serious SNYDER'S needed. His stoic and powerful presence matched the epic scale and grave tone of the films. While many fans loved this interpretation for its depth and emotional resonance, it also meant that the character was inextricably linked to that specific vision. As DC Studios decided to pivot towards a brighter future, this version of Superman, with all his established history of doubt and darkness, was no longer the right fit to lead the charge into a new, more hopeful era of storytelling. The new Superman, played by David Corenswet, is being designed from the ground up to be a completely different kind of hero. James Gunn has described his vision for the character as someone who embodies kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. This immediately sets him apart from the conflicted hero played by Henry Cavill. Corenswet's Superman is not meant to be a brooding figure questioning his place in the world. Instead, he will be an established, confident hero who is an unambiguous symbol of hope and optimism from the moment we meet him. He is the classic Superman, reimagined for a modern audience. The new film, Superman, is not another origin story. We will not see Clark Kent discovering his powers or struggling to become a hero. The movie will drop us into a world where Superman is already a well-known and beloved figure in Metropolis. This allows the story to focus on who he is as a person and a hero, rather than how he became one. He is already balancing his life as a reporter for the Daily Planet with his duties as the Man of Steel. This narrative choice frees the character from the angst of his beginnings and presents him as a fully formed champion of truth and justice from the outset. This version of Superman is intended to be the moral compass for the entire new DC universe. His inherent goodness and unwavering belief in humanity will be the standard against which all other heroes and villains are measured. While Cavill's Superman had to earn the world's trust, Corenswet's Superman already has it. The central conflict of his story will likely come from maintaining his ideals in a complex world filled with morally gray characters. His warmth, compassion, and inspirational nature are his core traits, making him a beacon of light in a universe that will be populated by both shining heroes and darker, more complicated figures. The visual style of the new film is also expected to reflect this change in character. Leaked photos from the set and the official suit reveal point to a brighter, more classic aesthetic. The colors are vibrant, and the design of the suit harkens back to more traditional comic book interpretations. This Superman is meant to inspire awe and comfort, not fear. He is a hero you would be happy to see, a friendly face who represents the very best of what humanity can aspire to be. David Corenswet's portrayal is set to deliver a hero who is less of a god among mortals and more of a friend to all. The decision to recast Superman is the cornerstone of James Gunn's ambitious plan for a new, cohesive DC universe. This isn't just about making one movie, it's about launching the first chapter of a decade-long saga, titled Gods and Monsters. For this grand design to work, it needed a solid foundation, and that foundation is Superman. By starting fresh with a new actor and a new take on the character, Gunn is ensuring that every film and series that follows will be part of a single, interconnected story. This Superman is the first building block of a much larger narrative world. A key part of this new vision is that Superman will not be the only hero in his world. The upcoming film will immediately introduce a large and diverse cast of DC characters, establishing a fully populated universe from day one. We know that Rachel Brosnahan will play the intrepid reporter Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult will be the brilliant and menacing Lex Luthor. But beyond that, the world is already filled with other superpowered individuals. Confirmed heroes include Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern Guy Gardner, Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, and Adi Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, signaling a world brimming with extraordinary people. This approach creates a much bigger and more dynamic sandbox for storytelling. The presence of other established heroes means that Superman's interactions and relationships will be central to the plot. Most notably, the film is set to introduce members of the Authority, a team of anti-heroes who use extreme and often lethal methods to enforce their brand of justice. This sets up a fascinating philosophical clash between their darker worldview and Superman's unwavering idealism. The new DCU will not be a world where Superman is the only major player. It will be a complex ecosystem of different ideologies and power levels. In the end, replacing Henry Cavill was a necessary step to fulfill this grander vision. It allows the new DCU to start with a clean slate, defining its own tone, characters, and rules. This change is the definitive statement that a new era has begun for DC movies, one that promises a more hopeful, interconnected, and expansive universe of stories. With a new Superman leading the way, surrounded by a roster of new and familiar faces, the stage is set for a whole new generation of adventures. The journey is just beginning, and it all starts with a fresh take on the greatest hero of them all.